G'day, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me. So today we are getting back to the Gatekeeper and basically a long-term review or medium-term review. I mean, it's been about 6 months, whatnot. I've given it some treatment, as you can see up in the corner there. Check out the videos for that if you haven't seen them already. Basically, she's lost power. It runs, but it's lost power, and I think the brush setup's just gunked up, and it's never been my favourite. I'm always burning out brush motors whenever I run them, so time for some goodness. I forked out for one of these babies, and yeah, let's chuck it in there. On the way there, I'm going to go over my sort of likes and dislikes, parts that seem to they're going to wear quickly, at least in the frame, where it takes some hits, being a low vehicle. My recommendations for tyre size, and then we're going to have a look at the gearbox and see if something's gunged up in there, if it was just the brush motor. See how that's performed and stood up to the torment. If we get time, we'll look at the diffs. Otherwise, if people want to see that, I'll put it in a separate video. I just don't want this to drag on to be, you know, like half an hour or something or whatnot. So let's start with having a look at this, the chassis, the frame, the car, and see what's what. Then I'm going to take the gearbox out and we'll have a look in there. Anyway, right, so let's start underneath. Now, first things first, one of the things I don't like about this is that they didn't bother to put any cage. Like, this area here could have had a nice... And I could design it myself and put it on there, and I probably will, instead of using the flappy rubbery stuff. But it could have had a nice way to stop that splash coming right up and onto your goods. That's kind of a big thing for me, but maybe not for some. Now, a quick disclaimer: the water around here is from a dam, like and off the land. It's quite minerally, and it's quite corrosive for fresh water. So keep that in mind when I go through and discuss. Now with this car, because I've been running it wet so often, I've been using lanolin oil, sheep's oil. What, they squash sheeps? No, it's from the wool. And on the universal joints, and in the wearing, in the wheel end bearings. And that seems to have made them last pretty well. I'm quite happy with that, and it's kind of a standard practice I do. But if you look at these bolts, you can see there's quite a bit of corrosion on these bolts, and I have been round and I have put oil on them. So that's with the oil, you know, being washed off. So the corrosion of the bolts, the grade of the steel, it's harsh place around here, but still, it's not like, it'd be really, really nice and worth 50 extra bucks to get really hardcore, you know, like stainless steel fittings for it in the pack, I mean. But it's fairly good. Just oil them. Don't let the you know, like, make sure they're corrosion protected, because they will rust and you'll have a problem if you're not, you know, if you've got corrosive water or just any water. Secondly is the diffs. Yeah, these diffs seem to have stood up to the punishment pretty well, but as you can see, they're getting some punishment, and that will bring me to the real recommendations. Get something big. Don't mess about with these great grippy little tyres, and the hubs are heavy and it balances really well, but you really want that extra clearance with a vehicle like this. And additionally, having the pneumatic tyres, it almost floats in the water. It's quite cool, that. And finally, yeah, look, I mean, as you can see, this area here is unprotected, and then when you hit something, that water's going to sort of V up right up in here and right into your motor. And again, it's just this area should have had some protection to avoid the damage and extra wear. Excuse me. To avoid the damage and extra wear to your motor and whatnot. I seem to have a frog in my throat. Okay, what I like about it. Well, actually, the suspension I like and dislike. It's still liable to some body roll. Some when you don't have the anti-roll bar on the rear, but I can deal with that. It's a rock crawler for me. That said, the suspension is nice, supple and soft in the rear, maybe even a bit too soft. If you want to load a big battery there, you're going to have to beef up your springs. The front, Again, I have beefed up the springs as much as possible to carry the extra weight, and I'm going to be putting in heavier equipment. So I'm a bit worried about that, and maybe another set of shocks will be needed all round. But the panhard bar setup and the steering and the articulation on the steering, that steering lock, is beautiful, as well as the articulation in the front suspension. That's all I really have to cover there. It would have been nice to see some sort of lip on this area here to cover these rails. There's no, there's just damage to metal rails when you could have had a plastic armour on it, and that would have been sweet. You might notice I got disc brakes. Nah, just kidding. Now, I don't know why companies don't bother putting a decent frickin' clip in with their model, but for like a $400 or $500 model, get a decent clip, one that's easy to grab. Yeah, top tip. Come on, guys. So replace those. Make sure you've got some replacements, because the ones that come with it are liable to jump away from you and are hard to grab and poo. So let's have a look inside. Now, again, I think a retention strap point would be a good idea. You could loop around this. Sorry, remote. You could loop around this section here, but there's nothing on the body to really come back to, so you'd have to add something yourself. It is pretty bereft for space up front to mount the ESC as well, like you've seen before. So as you can see here, I'm going to have to fit the man bar, which is wider and longer. So fun. Apart from that, everything seems pretty good back here. As you can tell, I've moved the battery to the rear. I've already covered that in an early video. Yeah, not too much to say really in the side. It would be nice to see more places to mount stuff, around. I've already started taking stuff apart. So with that, I'm going to get in here, take the gearbox out, and test the motor and all that goodness, and then we'll come back and have a look at the gearbox. Okay, so I've got this opened up here at least somewhat, and first thing I want to show you. So let's swap cameras. First things first, there's been a fair bit of wear on these teeth, especially on this pinion here. And there is a bit of wear on this this big gear here. I'd say I have seen harder gears than that come on cheaper models. Just a little bit of a letdown for the price of this model. You'd expect this to be a really, top grade plastic. This of course is provided by me, and nothing special. It seems to be a brass backed, body. And as you can see, it's actually that. Is that pinion gear. Doesn't actually sound too bad when I turn it though. Anyway, I will get this off and give them all a clean up. That's a lot of brass, I think, and or bronze, probably brass, and we'll have a little look-see inside this gearbox. There is a bit of slop. Oh yeah, look at that. Has this camera just died? God damn it. I think the camera just died. Alright, so I'll try to get a shot of this and stick it up here with the other camera, but there's a bit of slop that's developed. These plates are slipping, so they've loosened up. And yet, the nut is shifting very slightly. So there may be a tendency for this to undo itself even with a lock nut on it. Keep that in mind. Alright, next steps. Alright, here she is. Let's get into it. So, first of all, we'll start with this one. And come in a little closer, because you can see in the bottom of that, while it fuckers is, Yes, that is what you think it is. That is water. So water has gone in the box. It is not 100% sealed from the factory. I do think this could be very easily sealed, especially with slight modifications to the design. And I would suggest, not just to Enduro RC, but to all manufacturers, having parts like maybe gaskets that could be optionally put in might be a really cool idea. Like 3D prints people could do. Paper cutouts you could do on an inner tube material. Something like that. That'd be really cool. Because as we saw in the body, and as you can see here from when it was mounted, the inner tube material has protected like the under area of the box from any water ingress. So that actually worked really well. I wasn't intending it to do that. It just did. And I think that something like that could be used for the rest of this thing. And that would be pretty bonza. Right, so let's move to this other side here. So here we are, and you can see the center of those. Well, the bearing is smooth as a baby's. There is corrosion definitely like through this area here. You can see marks of corrosion. So yeah, this is something that you want to check if you're running through the water and make sure that you're going to keep in good nick. Same up here. Thought that was grease. Well, you can see here this light red. That is, if you're wondering if there's no rust or anything like that that's making it blindingly obvious, or water remaining in the box that's making it blindingly obvious, and you're a little confused as to like if any water is getting into your grease, what it'll do is take note of that color there. That's what color it should be. So that color there that's the original grease. Nice dark red. And that color there definitely looks a couple of shades lighter. So minor water amounts of water have gotten to the top of the box. Maybe it's sealed better than at the bottom. Bearings, obviously, spinning things, breaking surface tension, allowing water to move through. This is all a factor that goes into like waterproofing anything, and yeah. So there's no waterproof bearings in this, right? So yeah. Look, what am I sort of going to sum up and say is that I'm very impressed for the most part, although this hasn't had a long period. So the gearbox in the HD602, which is like the probably similar to that, it's a very solid little gearbox, and I have never really had to change the parts of the gearbox itself. Like I've swapped in good bearings. It comes with with brass sleeves, and I swapped in good bearings and all that kind of stuff, and it's just kept on going. It's really good, and I've drowned that truck as well. Yeah, I've drowned that truck as well. So I would expect more, to be honest. Like that was a like $350 ready to roll or something like that, or $400 ready to roll Australian dollar. This was about $550 or something like that. I'll double check and put it up here. And it was a kit. Now, for that money, I would have expected that a few things were a little better than they are, but I've been pretty happy in general. And if you want to see exactly all those things, maybe go back and check out the earlier video, because I'll probably forget something, but the review video. But yeah, like metal turnbuckles, and yeah, the splash guarding, mounting spaces, mounting options, plastic center diffs. A few of these things, like, there's others. But does the car perform like as advertised? Absolutely. It drives really nicely. Even with small tires, it crawls really well. I keep looking at it. But if you put something like this on it, it's a beast. These are Ozstar Tire Rehub. There's the hub. So I designed a hub and put it in there, and they almost float the car. These are a little heavier than the originals, so they won't float quite as well, but yeah. So, yeah, look, I will continue to investigate this thing and make sure. We're going to do all of it and then have a look, because that bearing is rough. Rough. Dog style rough. Wait, the dog bollocks for good and bollocks for bad. With bollocks. Okay, right. Gripes. Have some gripes. So, look, does appear that the bearings facing the external interfaces of the gearbox do receive significant amounts of water, obviously, and they're all going to need replacing. The internal bearings do seem to be okay for the most part, but I do have a gripe with them. Let's switch over. Here is the bearing that goes out to the main drive from the motor. You can see it doesn't want to spin. Alright, so obviously that's received significant water and it's buggered, and you can spin it, but it's rough. So that's probably absorbing a lot of power from that brush setup. So there's definitely a major culprit in depowering the vehicle. And here we have basically some the gears that send the drive down, and they sit between these two bearings, one here and one here, and this sits back in here. Now, would someone at Enduro RC like to write to me in the comments explaining how the hell they designed that to be replaceable? That's going to be an ass to replace. So yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate your design. Maybe look at the HG602, and whoever they ripped that off, you're a legend. I have no idea who they ripped that off, because, well, unless they designed it themselves, in which due credit, but like I don't think they did. Anyway, this is a different gearbox. That's going to be a pain. I'm not happy with that. Because they will wear. This one's fine. This one is stiffer. And this one seems, if I can get in there, like it's actually, can you see it's spinning the whole, so the inner sleeve and the bearing run is spinning there. And this one is fine. This one doesn't spin under the tension of the tweezers, but it does spin once you actually give it a proper bit of oomph. So that's that. That's those bearings and a gripe. Now, the other bearings that are buggered, of course, were these bottom ones on this. Now, let's see if I can get this. I'm just trying to get the sound for you. That's a good bearing. It's really hard to actually, I don't think I just can't. Basically with these, both sides, they have three bearings in this assembly. In the center there's a bearing between the two different ratio gears, and on the outside there's a bearing feeding to the drivetrain front and back. The outside bearings have developed slop. They do seem to roll quite well. The inside bearing is solid. There is some corrosion, however. You can see that corrosion there, and it hasn't affected this gear, but it will eventually. And that's the, come on, focus. That's the outside side bearing there, and I don't know if I can get this. Oh yeah, you can see that slop there. No slop there. Wear parts. Same deal with this bearing here. On the outside of that, it has developed hold. Has developed significant slop. And while quite free and able to spin, is a little bit noisy. So there you have it. That is a look inside this gearbox after some rough treatment and how it is held up to it. All in all, I mean, it's not falling apart on me, but there's definitely already stuff that needs replacing, which is kind of a shame. That said, she did go swimming more than once. So anyway, look, it's only bearings. All the gears are good. You know, it's easy to source stuff. So all in all, I don't know. I think I'm going to give it, I don't know. I mean, I'd give it a thumbs up because I love driving the thing. It's a lot of fun. You know, how it crawls and moves and gets over terrain. It's lovely, but should I have gone for SCX3 or something? I mean, SCX3, SCX-10-3 or what, you know, third generation one of them, or something else. They're a different truck. Yeah, so. Okay, so I've got to put all this back together and obviously clean it up as best as possible first and see what I can do about sealing it up.
Okay, so unfortunately I didn't have the microphone plugged in for this one. Bit dumb. But this is how I took the bearing off of that shaft. It was a bit of a pain. It involved yon hammer and a fancy piece of wood. Yes, this is my drilling board, and I just found a hole on it that was the same size as the bearing so I could put it through. And I put it through and then use the pliers, or vice grips in my case, as a backing for it. Like so, up there, vice grips on there, bearing on top, and then clamped it down and hit it with a hammer. And that's pretty well how I got that out of there. So yeah, I hope that helps someone. Now we got one more of these. So you might remember me whinging about a certain set of bearings in this gearbox. Well, guess what? This is how I got them out, and I don't believe it is the right way to do it. So I applied what you call percussive force to remove the bearings with the back of this hammer. Nice light hammer. I do recommend you do not use a very heavy hammer for this one, because it's more about that repetitive force, not overall strength of the blow. And just keep tapping and tapping and tapping, only bringing it back about a centimetre, not much force at all, until the bearing falls out. I do not believe this is the way that Enduro RC must have intended for this to be done, but it was any way I could manage to get it done. So yeah, please would value that comment from the Enduro RC team. Let's get back into it.
All right, so I've gotten this bad boy broken down right here. Out of all those bearings, there's one I can't seem to get out, and that's this one here. I'm not willing to give it any harder of a hit, fear of breaking the gearbox case. So we're just going to hope that that bearing holds in. I'm going to stuff a bunch of grease in there and pray to the machine god. Apart from that, I've gotten all the other bearings off. Except for these drive bearings, like on the on this main gearbox, on this assembly here. Now I can't seem to remove them very easily, and to do so I'm going to be damaging bearings that still spin quite well. So I'm going to basically just grease the shit out of those and put them back in. I know this will probably shorten the time between closing this gearbox up and opening up again, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Best bet would be to change all the bearings over, but you know, like, things cost money and effort and time, and so I'm just going to go with that. For now, that just leaves me to basically replace the bearings that were buggered, like this one. It's got some friends here. And over here to go in. So I've got to reassemble. Nothing really too drastic about it. Just a bit of a pain to get some of the bearings out, really. Yeah, like, it's a shame, but what can you do? I'm going to get this reassembled, greased up, put back together, and slap that motor in. Let's get to it. Just quickly, wherever I have found rust, I've gone through and I've put in greasiness. So there's lots of grease that's going to protect it from now on. Probably should have put a bit more in when I originally put it together. Anyway, okie dokie, she's in. I'll give you a quick look at the install and then we'll get out there. It's pretty rudimentary at the moment. So, pull that up over the top and you can see, is this in focus? Got the member up here, the switch is still loose, it's just sort of tucked in. I need to go through and lacquer this, and the sensor line back down there. I have lacquered the plugs going into the ESC because they do not dry well. So if you look back in the corner here, you'll see a video on, I guess, the Black Beauty, the 6x6, 8x8, whatever you want to call it. It has one of these in it too. And I had corrosion issues, and this video covers how I fix those corrosion issues and how I sorted it out for the future. So yeah, watch that if you're interested in waterproofing your RC gear in for one of these members. It all works. I've set it up, gone through the setup. I don't have a castle link, so that took a while. But yeah, I would like to make a better battery bay for that. I'm using 2 big lithium ions there. And this could run on I think up to 6S, but I'm not going to go there because I value my drivetrain. One thing I do have to mention though, the Castle, this motor did not fit the stock plate. I had to punch a hole through it, by that I mean drill a hole through it, just next to where the plate is, and if I've got a photo up there I'll put it there. It wasn't too hard, literally just one hole, filed it down with one of these nice little diamond doobies, and Bob's your father's brother. That went in, no worries. The only other real sort of thing that I'm going to have to do something about is... So there was one big snafu, one thing that I'm not going to be able to put back on the car, and that is this thing. If you watched the original video, you will have seen I had problems with this before, fitting a pinion gear, just allowing it rubbed against the side, and I had to make clearance for it. And now the shaft of this motor here is too long to fit this by, I think, 3-4 millimeters. It just sort of is too long for this part here. Now, I think I'm just going to 3D print that, and when I do, I'll make a little video just sort of showing it and put it up, and make the design available, probably on Thingiverse, maybe not. I've had some issues with Thingiverse. I've got a video I actually haven't released because the design's on Thingiverse, but it won't show publicly. I don't know why, and I can't get to edit it, so I'm not 100% happy with Thingiverse. I might just provide a Google link to the STLs or something like that, and I might do the same with this. Either way, it'll be in the description. So stay tuned for that. Apart from that, seems good. I'm going to go for a test run now, and as you can see, I've got the big wheels on it because fun. Okay, here we are. We've got the car out here, and we're going to go for a bit of a rock crawl. No mudding because there's no cover on those gears. You might notice I'm still using the IX12, and that's because I need to get a ground transmitter so I can swap that over and use the ground transmitter for these and the Tango 2 for the quads and planes, and get this bloody thing repaired. But it still works on one model, so we're going for it. Anyway, let's get over there. Now quickly, as a special treat for those of you who've watched to the end, this is the truck I did with the smaller wheels originally, just sort of over those rocks, down this way. Now I'm going to do the same, larger wheels. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I might have some closing remarks, so they'll be probably before this. But anyway, please like and subscribe. It does the channel heaps of good, and I really enjoy making the videos so I can share these things with you. I quite like giving it a bit of hard treatment, coming back and showing you how it's performed. So if you have any requests for models down below, you know, maybe if I get enough of those, I can fire it off to someone and they might send me a model to test for free. That'd be cool. Anyway, peace out, till next time, and I'll see you when I do. What you got there, Lou? What you got there? Have you got a new toy? Has you got a new toy? What's this? What's this? Oh, this is new. He's not mudded. He's not mudded yet. No. No. Oh, no, she's gone. Bye-bye, Lou.